Hello everyone. I want to go over how to operate and transfer a patient from our local facility on high flow nasal cannula, high flow nasal oxygenation. Now this high flow nasal cannula is a little bit different than what you're probably accustomed to when we talk about a standard nasal cannula that we have on our ambulances that we can, set up to 10-15 liters a minute. This is actually a very large bore nasal cannula. You can see it's larger, it's more rugged, it's got a very robust strap on it, and this can deliver oxygen up to 60 liters per minute. 60 liters is all that the FDA has approved, although they are working on being able to deliver more liters per minute. This is logistically complicated, but myself and Dr. Hilty and the hospital feel like it is imperative and beneficial to be able to maintain this therapy during transport, although it does make things a little more complicated for us. So I'm going to break down the components of this system to try to simplify it and make it easier on you all, okay? So the way that the hospital has this set up is this component right here is a heater and a humidifier. So when you're delivering this much oxygen, you can quickly dry out the patient's nasal passages and I guess their lungs. So it's really important to heat and humidify this. Now this requires external power, right? And we're not going to be powering it when we're moving the patient from the hospital to our ambulance or from our ambulance to the other hospital. So it is important that you expedite that transfer process, but according to a pulmonologist that Dr. Hilty spoke to, it will not be deleterious to continue delivering oxygen that's not heated or humidified for a very short time frame, okay? So if you look at this device here, it's really simple to operate. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's a power button on the bottom. Let me try to get the camera angle so you can see that. There's a power button on the bottom. All you do is hit that to turn it on, and it'll come up in invasive. You want to hold this button until it goes down to non-invasive. You don't have to make any more adjustments to this device here, okay? On the side of the heater and humidifier, there are some probes, and this one monitors the heat. This is the heater wire, all right, and this monitors the temperature, okay? So it can automatically regulate the heat and the humidity. And you can see that this goes directly to the patient, okay? It's pretty straightforward. When the patient exhales, they exhale into the atmosphere, so it doesn't go through the exhalation port on our ventilator. The way that they have to connect this to make it work for them, which is different than how we'll make it work for us, is they have a mixer here and they blend. So you see that this blends, they're connected to medical oxygen and medical air, which is kind of like our equivalent of room air. This blends it. This is where they select their oxygen percentage, and then here it goes through a O2 regulator, and this is how they regulate how many liters per minute the patient is on. So what you're going to need to know from them is what is their O2 percentage, okay, and how many liters per minute is the patient on. Those are the only two settings that you will have to adjust on your ventilator. If you have any questions, I would communicate with the hospital, okay, because this is new to them and it's new to us, okay? So if there are any issues, you communicate with the nurse that has set this device up and the physician that is sending this patient out, all right? So, for our ventilator, what I recommend is that you set the ventilator on this trolley because, and I'll explain why. What we're going to do is we're going to turn ours on, and you'll see if you hit modes, there's a high flow O2 mode, and you hit confirm, okay, which I've already done. You set the flow rate, whatever the hospital had the flow rate on, and you set the oxygen percentage, whatever they had it set on their blender. So generally, you know, you can expect 50, 60 liters per minute, and for oxygen percentage, that can vary, okay? What you do is you set this up. I would first set it up, set it on this trolley, connect to their wall O2, because this is going to drain our oxygen tanks. I want to switch it over to our portable tank, or preferably a portable tank from the hospital. I would grab 2 because they have longer, larger tanks. All right. When I'm ready, I'm going to, you can see this here, I'm going to pop this off, and then I'm going to connect it to the 2 patient port. It's the top one here. And per our rep, we do not need a filter on this. And then quickly, when I'm ready, I'm making sure I'm connected. I'm going to hit start therapy. All right, start therapy. And I'm going to make sure that the patient tolerates this before I move them over to our stretcher, just in case I have to switch back over to the hospital system. All right, so you can see, it's got a little tangled up. You can actually feel the heat coming through this tubing, and then you can probably hear this, the air coming out. Okay, it's blowing my hair. All right. So if the patient's tolerating this, the next step, which is going to be very difficult, is moving them to the stretcher. So if you have to move them, I would just push this trolley to the head of the stretcher, and then of course this will be on the other side, but I will have them, it says I'm not connected to power, but I would have them slide over, and then I'm going to work on setting this up. So let me see if I can get a better angle for you. Okay. I have these back wheels locked. So let's just assume that this patient has slid over. I've got to figure out how to move all of this other stuff over. All right, so we're going to imagine that the patient is laying here. They're connected to oxygen. The tubing, let me show you this. The tubing from our ventilator to the heater and humidifier is very short. It's very short. You don't have a lot of play here. All right. If you have to, in order to transition this, briefly disconnect and then reconnect once you have moved everything. So I'm going to take my ventilator. I'm moving this cart over. Let me move this down so you can see. It's still not good. Okay. There. I'm going to just hook the ventilator here onto this rail on the other side. Then get all of this out of the way because this is unnecessary. We don't need it. I'm going to disconnect the heater and humidifier. And I know you can't see it right now, but there is all it does is it slides in like that. So all you have to do is lift up on it. And once I do that, I can then set this on the back of the stretcher, which I'm a little tangled here. little tangled up, and you can see how difficult this can be. But take your time, don't rush. I'm going to set this on the back of the stretcher, all right, in this netting. And I have to move this bag of sterile water for inhalation over to my IV pole. The tubing is not very long. The tubing is not very long, so if they don't have this extension, I'm going to ask them to get one, and I'm just going to let it hang here, and this provides the sterile water to humidify the oxygen. And then the last thing I'm doing before we're all packaged, the patient's on the monitor, the last thing I'm going to do is disconnect the power to the heater and humidifier. Our ventilator will continue to deliver oxygen, and it is a mixer, so it'll mix and deliver the oxygen, okay, at the concentration that we have set. It just won't heat or humidify. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the power from here, and I want to try to expedite this process, but remember, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So I'm just going to lay that on the back, and then I'm going to disconnect right before we're ready to go. I'm going to disconnect from the hospital's O2 using their quick disconnect, and I'm going to connect that into my portable O2 cylinder. Let me put this in standby, and this will run 21% oxygen, all right? And so if I do run out of O2, I can still deliver a high flow rate of room air, which will still provide some PEEP, a little bit of PEEP, and it will increase the mean airway pressure. So I'm going to connect to this. Now, this is going to drain your tank quickly. If you are at 60 liters per minute and 100% O2, you can expect your portable tank to last less than 5 minutes. If you are using the hospital's long cylinder, it's going to last a little bit longer. We're going to create a cheat sheet that you can reference and say, based on this size tank, this many liters per minute, this FiO2, this is how long I have, or we'll create some kind of calculator for you to be able to calculate that on the fly. The ventilator will also show you how many liters per minute you're running if you go into system, and in the bottom left corner it says O2 consumption in liters per minute. Now the expectation is on the way to the receiving center that they take you directly to wall oxygen. So they take you straight to a room, and they provide you with portable tanks that will help get the patient to the floor if the patient's going to a floor. Okay, I hope that this was helpful, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you. And I forgot to mention, as soon as you get back in the ambulance, you'll need to reconnect the heater and humidifier to the wall outlet in the back of the ambulance, and you will have to hit the power button on the heater and humidifier, and it may come up as humidifying an intubated patient. You will have to change that to non-invasive. All right, thank you all.